Hello and welcome back to WTF is AuDHD with late diagnosed sisters Ellie and Paige. We were diagnosed late.
And we're here to educate.
Very nice. We are, how old are we? 30 and 32, if you're new here. And we're sisters and we were diagnosed with ADHD and autism in our late 20s. You've also got Tourette's, just resetting in case.
Multifocal tic syndrome, it's considered now.
There you go.
Tourette's back in the day because I had a verbal tic. I had a couple verbal tics, but I grew out of those. So now it's multifocal tic syndrome.
There you go.
Under the umbrella of Tourette's.
Yeah.
So
if you're new here, welcome. On today's episode, we are going to talk about a thing that affects us quite badly, and a lot of ADHDers. Some people who are autistic, but it's more of an ADHD thing, but it's also not exclusive to ADHD. This can affect people with other things like trauma. But we are talking about RSD. Now, RSD is Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria.
sensitivity dysphoria?
I think it's technically sensitive.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, but same thing. And it basically means that you have an extreme reaction to perceived rejection or actual rejection.
Yeah.
It can be non-existent. The rejection could actually not exist and we still perceive it to be a rejection.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that, how it ties into ADHD, our experiences with it, and maybe you might recognize that you do have this aspect, and we just want to make you feel less alone because it can be quite a lonely one aspect of ADHD because you're often made to feel like you're being dramatic or you're overreacting. And yeah, maybe and objectively you might be overreacting, but that doesn't help how you're actually feeling in that moment.
It's an awful feeling.
Yeah. So we're going to chat about that. But before we get into it, I just wanted to point back to last week's episode.
Paige's pointers pioneered by Paige.
Bloody beauty, mate. Last week, if you haven't listened to it, we gave some pointers that Paige has come up with across her life to cope and manage her ADHD. And then I put out on our Instagram story, our Instagram handle is WTF is AuDHD podcast, if you want to follow us. I put out a question box and I basically said, do you have any pointers that you want to share with the community that you find helpful? And we had some good responses. So I just wanted to go through a couple of them. The first one, and I'm so on board with this, Eleanor says, HelloFresh recipe box delivery service or any other type like bargain box, blah, blah, blah. She said, decision quota reduced massively. Now, I totally understand this because for me, going to the supermarket, we talked about this last week, it's the decision making. It's the what do I want? What goes with that? Blah, blah. It's so stressful. I personally hate it. And I'm a huge fan of food boxes. They are more expensive, but you pay for the convenience. You pay for the mental load being taken off you. And I do love food boxes. So that is a good, if you can afford it, I find that just actually makes my life so much easier.
And isn't my food bag like mostly ready to go? Wait, which one is it?
Whoop.
Oh, Whoop.
Ready to go. I've done Whoop for a while. I actually really enjoyed Whoop.
Whereas HelloFresh, you actually got to make it.
Yeah, a bit more heavy duty, the old HelloFresh, but they're all great. And I think for me, it's the mental load of working out what to eat.
Yeah.
Instead of, I just like it arriving at my house and going, do this, do that. That's what I like. So thank you, Eleanor. And Eleanor also said, being healthy means your brain too. The unhealthy choice, in quotation marks, is sometimes what is best.
Wait.
So like, for example, I'm going to justify my chocolate eating here. So like, it might be like you're on your period and you feel like chocolate, you're feeling, vulnerable. And this is possibly not a good example of what Eleanor was meaning, but it's sort of like going, don't berate yourself for that piece of chocolate because it's actually going to make you feel better right now.
Yeah.
And I know that that's not always a good mindset because short term, is not always the best decision to go for the reward that's short term, but sometimes it is.
In moderation, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I think, being kind to your brain and being like, I deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with that. She's basically saying being healthy also means your brain. So the unhealthy choice is what's best sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you might be looking after your brain and not your body at that point, and then vice versa.
Sometimes I'm feeling so shit, and then I'm like, I just don't care. I'm going to order like Hell's Pizza.
Yeah.
And I do not feel bad.
Yeah.
So I feel happy, and I'm just like in my comfies at home smashing back my Camembert Bites and Unholy Donut. If you haven't tried it, you need to.
Oh, yeah. Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored, but I will go on about it all day or night.
Bronte says they can 100% recommend loop earplugs. You know, we're talking about the earplugs to noise cancel. So they are a life changer for every aspect of life. And Bronte also said, I agree 100% with keeping shoes on for productivity.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm wearing my shoes right now and I actually feel like I'm more in tune to
Yeah,
this podcast
cool,
right now.
good. I've got my slippers on.
Nice.
I'm chillaxing.
Chilling out. We've also got someone saying that they use their Samsung watch to constantly talk to Google Assistant. So just constantly going, hey, Google, can you add this to the shopping list? Can you add this to that? Can you add this to that?
That's great.
Yeah. And then Ashley said, using a physical calendar stuck to my fridge has changed my life.
Good.
So again, talking about the physical calendar, not the one on your phone that you ignore every notification that comes through. Because that's what I definitely do. Another one from Ashley was put your phone number on your keys. She loses hers a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
That is a really good one. You're like a little cat that needs a little collar on. And then Ashley also said ordering groceries online, which I originally, when I was ordering groceries online, I felt really guilty. I was like, oh my gosh, this is definitely meant for like older people and like people who can't leave the house. And I'm just like, yeah, I need to be delivered. Actually, no, to be fair, I usually click and collect. But again, I kind of got through that and I was like, you know what? I find it helps me a lot easier getting someone else to do my shopping, ordering it online, but I actually find that really helpful and don't feel guilty about it.
And also, there's so many other reasons why that's good. First of all, you can like see how much it's racking up as you're doing it.
Oh my gosh.
Whereas you like get to the checkout and you're like, that's $250, and you're like, holy shit. And also, you just like search it rather than like literally walking around the supermarket like where's the pistachios?
Exactly.
It's like I just thought of that because of this pistachio bag. There's a pistachio bag over there. You just type in pistachio and there are all the options for you. It's just brilliant.
Bloody brilliant. And also the other thing that stops is when you've got ADHD and you're dopamine seeking and you walk past all the lollies in the lolly aisle.
Yeah.
It stops you from doing that.
Yes. Whereas like you're only searching for what you need to search for.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And then the last one here, don't put it down, put it away. This is such a good one. And I really try and use this one myself. So it basically just means like if you're using something, if you're going to put it down somewhere, why not put it down where it belongs?
Oh, I'm so bad for that. I've been trying to implement that. I've heard that somewhere. Maybe it was TikTok. I've been trying to implement that. But sometimes I'm on such a warpath of like wanting to do what I want to do, whether it's like making nachos or something, and that everything is everywhere. It's like a bomb site.
Yeah, no, I relate to that so much. Oh, there's just like clothes constantly everywhere. I just dump things around the house. And yeah, like in theory, it's actually a really good one. It's like if you're putting it down anyway, just walk the extra 10 steps and put it away.
Oh, but that's so admin when you've got your mind on another task.
I know. And then also sometimes when I accumulate something new, so I might buy something or whatever, or it is added to my home, there's no place for it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I ends up just sitting on the bench for like 3 weeks while I go, where will that live? And then I forget it's there and then it becomes like an ornament on my bench.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing is sometimes I don't know where to put the home because the other issue with ADHD especially is the object permanence issue. So if I put it away, I'll forget I have it.
Yeah. Wait, one thing I've seen it on TikTok, people making jokes about it, but I've definitely done it when like an object becomes so overwhelming you can't figure out where the frick to put it, so you just throw it away. I've definitely done that. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is causing more shit than I need, so let's just chuck it out. It's so bad.
Yeah. But there you go. Thank you for your hacks. Thank you for your pointers.
Yes.
We could call those the people's pointers.
People's pointers.
We really appreciate it. And if you've got any more, feel free to send them through because I think having those little strategies every day can really help, especially when diagnosis is not hugely accessible for people and medication, therefore, is not hugely accessible. So having these little strategies can really just help your everyday trauma and issues and battles.
Yes, and some people don't like medication, which is totally fair. And so, yeah, just like implementing little strategies can help.
Exactly right. All right, so we'll jump into RSD. Now,
Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria.
That is the one. Now, this one is not, okay, RSD is not part of the ADHD diagnostic criteria. It's not in the DSM and it's not actually officially a diagnosis. However, over many years, there's been lots of studies done and it's becoming more prevalent that RSD is very much highly correlated with ADHD. Not so much autism, a little bit, but more ADHD. And there's two kind of theories about it and it's still being researched. So we don't know everything about it, but us talking about it is going to help people learn. So Dr. William Dodson, he is one of the key kind of doctors in describing RSD. He's the one that's done a lot of research on it. And his theory is that it's actually baked into ADHD wiring. So it's not you don't learn this behavior or you don't learn this.
Oh.
He theorizes that it's actually to do with the wiring of an ADHD brain, the lack of dopamine regulation, and the way our executive function has poor emotional regulation. It's related to the emotional regulation thing. They're still studying like why the brain in an ADHD person is like that, but he theorizes it's that.
Okay.
There's other theories that theorize it comes from trauma, which I do agree with. I think that it
Or
does.
could it exacerbate it, maybe?
Exactly. I think it's a bit of both. So we'll get more to those near the end of the episode about the actual theories of where it comes from, because you might be able to identify in yourself how it affects you, where it affects you, blah, 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 blah. But basically, RSD is an intense emotional response to perceived or actual rejection, criticism, or failure. And for some of us, it feels like we're being physically hurt.
Yeah.
So this is like where, for example, just one small example might be that you text your friend and then they don't reply for a few hours. And instead of your brain just like trying to logically go, oh, they're clearly busy, you exacerbate and catastrophize it and physically, innately, and like viscerally feel rejected. It's not just like a feeling of, oh, I feel a bit rejected. It's like a physical, like my nervous system shits itself. It's like my heart gets heavy and I feel like sick. Like I feel like a guttural reaction. How does it feel for you?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. If it's like a real sudden rejection, it can be real like heart drop, really instantly nauseous, and like I can sometimes get like adrenaline shooting through my fingertips and that. But yeah, so if it's like a sudden rejection where I see maybe I'm like I haven't been invited to a party that like you thought you would, it could be like woof, all straight away. It's just a silly example, but that's definitely happened to me in the past. And or if it's more of like being triggered from like a thought spiral. So like someone hasn't texted me back in like 5 hours, and my brain starts to slowly spiral and emotionally reason, like go, oh, they haven't texted me back. That means that blah 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 blah. That means that they don't like me. And then it's like a more of a gradual like sick feeling, heart heavy feeling. Yeah, it's probably a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you feel like that to perceive rejection, and when I say perceived rejection, it can be that you haven't actually been rejected, but you perceive it as rejection.
Yeah. Which is emotional reasoning as well, right? Like it kind of ties into that, where like you take someone's behavior as because it's made you feel a certain way, that then means that they don't like me, which is not necessarily true.
Yeah. RSD isn't just taking things personally. It's not as simple as that. It actually feels like a physical, like life-threatening fight or flight response is what I would describe it as.
Yeah.
And often people with RSD, like this is how it's manifested in me. I've become, and I think you too, have become a chronic people pleaser.
Oh yeah. Yes, that's definitely it. Because I'm terrified of rejection and that feeling is awful. So I will put my own needs aside all the time to make sure I don't ever feel rejected.
Yeah, exactly right. And it can be like,
but in the end, you're rejecting yourself.
Nice, it's deep. It's true, exactly right. And it can feel like rage, or it can just feel like crying. So I more so freeze initially. And it might be the autism coming in for us, but I kind of freeze and I don't know how I feel, and I just fawn, and I then process it later. But I feel physically sick.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I spend my entire life trying to avoid rejection.
Yes.
So that's actually what I do. I don't experience RSD a lot because I have cleverly made sure, this is so bad though, that I'm never rejected.
Yeah, it's so bad on you.
Yeah. So, and like this goes back to like even me, I've always described one of the biggest guttural feelings of like for me is humiliation or being embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so even as a kid, I used to say this to Paige. This is how early on I clicked onto this. I said to Paige, mock yourself before anyone else can.
Self-deprecation.
Yeah, and that's one of my biggest weapons, which is not a good weapon necessarily, but self-deprecation. And I think that's a huge thing in ADHD is, and I think humor is often used to combat perceived rejection, but also stop it before it can happen.
Yeah, like you take the piss out of yourself before anyone else could take the piss out of yourself.
Yep.
Because it disarms that. It takes the power away and it gives it back to you.
Exactly right, yeah. So some people with RSD or who have the component of RSD might avoid relationships even because it's just easier to not engage in it.
What? It's not me.
Yeah, I feel like maybe you're a little bit like that, where you sort of like avoid.
Well, it's safer to just rely on myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I put my needs onto anyone else, there's the door opening to be rejected.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that could be friends, or I don't mean relationships necessarily, I just mean like everyone.
No, exactly. And that's why it can end up being quite a lonely place if you're combating it with avoidance or people pleasing, because then either way your needs are not being met. And it's a really complex part of it. And I think people are starting to describe RSD as one of the biggest factors of ADHD.
It's definitely the most debilitating part for me of my neurodivergence. RSD is crippling for me.
Yeah.
I would say even more than like my physical tics that I have to deal with every day. If I could take one thing away, actually now thinking about it, I think I would say RSD.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I actually notice how much it affects me.
Yeah, wow. I wonder if also your tics are like triggered by RSD.
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
If I'm experiencing bad things, they definitely get worse.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awful. The other thing that people do, and this is what we've done, we've had a whole episode on this, but to kind of avoid RSD, we mask again. So this is another huge reason I think people with ADHD mask is to avoid, once again, any form of rejection.
Yes.
And again, not good, because then you lose your true self and you don't know where you fit. Some people, I'm not so much like this. I haven't done anything extreme like this, but some people might even exit a friendship suddenly or quit their job suddenly to avoid the rejection. But yeah, it's a very intense feeling of a fight or flight response, and I instantly can feel like sweaty and like my heart rate increases. It's like fight or flight. It's actually like I've just encountered a bear in the forest and I need to run.
I get adrenaline, so my heart drops, stomach goes sick, and then I get like shooting adrenaline through my fingertips.
Yeah, that's awful, eh?
Yeah.
Ugh, I hate that.
And then I kind of freeze, and then maybe I cry later.
Yeah. I'm the same. I never really cry immediately. And so people will think that I'm always fine, but it's because I mask it and I just freeze and I ignore any feeling and I have the physical feeling and then I deal with it later.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And then I pretend and mask, even if I'm feeling rejected or I've been rejected and I'm in front of someone, I will almost overcompensate and be super nice to them.
Yes.
Like, it's kind of gross. Like, I then kind of try and like fawn back to make sure that I'm back where I want to be in the relationship. And that's a friendship, that's a work relationship, that's any relationship. So again, it does control a huge aspect of our life, RSD.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's how we react a lot to every relationship and anything like that. Some more examples of RSD in everyday life could be things like your boss says, "This is great, just tweak this bit." And then you literally feel like, oh my God, they hate my work, they're going to fire me, blah, 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 blah. And you catastrophize that. That's another example. Even like when I get an email from a boss when I used to work in a workplace and it'd be like, "Hey, Ellie, all good if we have a chat in 10 minutes?
Oh, no.
No. That 10 minutes is like the most torturous 10 minutes of my life. And for some reason, I always assume it's a bad thing. Like,
me too.
What if it's not?
Yeah.
Like, it's often it's not.
I know. Oh my God. I'm like, I'm being fired. They found out that I didn't put the trash out or like stupid, but like whatever. It's like
you justify it somehow to go, yeah, no, I'm definitely getting fired.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then to other people, it probably sounds crazy. And so that's another reason it can be lonely, because you don't want to talk about with people because you do feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And often there's a lot of shame carried with this, because sometimes people with ADHD react differently. So me and you more freeze and fawn, but other people might just lose their shit and cry.
Yeah.
Have a meltdown, be quite overt physically and quite obvious about their rejection. And then later on, they feel shame for how they overreacted, because then they realize that it was just perceived rejection and wasn't actually rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard, because this, again, comes with so much shame, which then probably exacerbates the RSD further in future. And I think I want to talk about this shortly, but I do think that the trauma of being rejected as a neurodivergent person does impact how RSD manifests and how badly it manifests.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exacerbates it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even like people's tone. So like me and you are very
facial expression, moods. I am like, I'll jump to like conclusions like there's no bloody tomorrow, mate.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh my God, they looked at me like that. That means that they really don't like me.
Yeah. And often we're not wrong in interpreting the cue. So like often the cue we're looking at is a cue. So their moods change, their demeanors change, because I think with the autism, huge attention to detail. we might be right that it's changed, but our reasoning's all wrong.
But like we think it's about us.
Yeah, it's very egocentric, actually, if you think about it.
But we don't mean it in that way.
No.
It's just like, oh my God, have I caused any harm to anyone?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, even like tone of voice, facial expression, body language, lack of engagement with me, I can just perceive all of that as perceived rejection. Even like social media is a big one. Like when you put, honestly, I reckon one of the reasons I don't really post on social, if I really think about it, is actually due to RSD. I don't want any rejection. I don't want any critique. I don't want any like lack of likes, whatever that means. Like I avoid social media because it's just easier to not get,
or even just the thought of the sound, you know, but like people sharing your stuff with people and taking the piss out of you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
It's just
exactly.
like-
it's just easier to just shut it off.
Oh yeah.
So I avoid it.
Yeah.
Even like you might have like a creative thing that you might show me, for example, and then I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then you just go, oh my God, you hate it. You hate it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you hate it. And I'm like,
Like
no,
if
no.
you're not like enthusiastic, like, oh my God, that is amazing. I'm like,
She hates
you
it.
hate it.
I also think another manifestation of sort of RSD and trying to combat it is over apologizing and over explaining. So Paige and I are really bad for this. Like we and also I think it's to do with our brain processes so much at once that we're trying to give every thought process to the person we're trying to explain it to so that they understand every nuance of what we're trying to say. But we over explain and then it almost becomes convoluted. And then we also, it kind of makes us sound guilty or like,
I know.
you know, like it
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
does the opposite effect. And then we say sorry. Like honestly, I would call my sorry meter like almost, it's not a verbal tick. I'm not saying it is because it's very different, but it's sort of like a reflex
It's
for
a
me.
reflex, yeah.
I'm always saying sorry for breathing, sorry for this, sorry for that. That's again, I think perceived rejection and combating it maybe even before it happens.
Yeah, being terrified of being perceived in the way that you don't intend to be perceived.
Yeah.
Like going, like you said, like trying to explain every single in and out because you're terrified of them perceiving you in a way that you don't mean to.
Exactly right. And then if someone does perceive you in a way you don't mean to, that's when the justice sensitivity comes in. And that's another huge part that we could do a whole episode on, where people with ADHD and autism have a real sensitivity to justice. It has to be fair. And if people perceive me incorrectly, I really struggle with that.
Because you are not, like, you are the most fair, you are very fair.
Yeah.
And so, like, people, yeah.
Yeah. So the combo of justice sensitivity and rejection sensitivity, when you've got both, it can be debilitating. So that's a whole other kind of topic. But so yeah, on the whole, whether it's genetic or not, they do think that there is research saying that it is genetic and that you're born with it and you're wired that way, and your brain as an ADHD person is wired in the way that rejection is a really guttural reaction. And they think it's to do with obviously the emotional regulation with ADHD we know is not great. And they think it could be to do with like dopamine as well. Again, that's all sciencey stuff that I'm not going to speak on because I don't fully understand it. So do your own research. And eventually I'd love to get experts on who can actually talk about the brain and the neuroscience side of it. But it is neurological from some research. But there's also theories that it comes from trauma. Now, I think that this is a good theory, and I think it does. I think you probably are predisposed to it, but I think it gets worse. And I think this is also why some people with ADHD have RSD way worse than others. Some people might not really have it at all, and others have it really badly. And there's a widely cited estimate from some research that's been done where ADHD kids have received 20,000 more negative messages and criticisms by the age of 10 than a neurotypical. That's wild if you think about that. That is, in their formative first 10 years, being criticized that amount more than a neurotypical, that's going to do some damage.
Like, no wonder. Like, you're going to have self-esteem issues.
Totally.
You know, well,
you're constantly going to feel rejected. And so I think that's a huge kind of sign that that's going to impact your sensitivity to rejection.
Yeah.
And I think with ADHD kids as well, especially in like school, because it's not built for ADHD brains, a lot of this happens here. And it's like, it's either at school or it's in the home with the parents, and you're either constantly in trouble, you're constantly doing something wrong, you're constantly not meeting the expectations of the teacher, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that a lot of it is to do with the trauma side of it. And
that exacerbates it.
Yeah, it does. And people, RSD isn't exclusive to ADHD and autism either. It can be found with people who have chronic PTSD, People with borderline personality disorder often have RSD as well. Also, people who were real, I think this is a bit of me. This sounds really like cocky, but gifted people. No, but as a child, I was very gifted and I was very intelligent and I did very well at everything. And I didn't really have to think much. And I just got everything right through school. And so now that I'm older, my perfectionism is so chronic that I'm terrified of rejection in the way of like career and achieving things. And I think that's made my RSD worse because there was almost an element of me that didn't receive much rejection as a kid.
As a kid,
and it kind of had the opposite effect. Whereas other people might have had a lot of rejection in the home, and then it has the same effect almost. It's like I don't want to smash that that perception people have of me, and so that can often affect people there. And also people with just social anxiety in general, just like the rejection of being in a group and I think that's why some people with autism can have the RSD thing as well. Another environmental impact that might contribute to RSD is just like bullying. So like when you're neurodivergent and you've got these traits that don't fit into a classroom and you're bullied your whole life, that can also result in RSD, where when you finally do have a friendship, you're constantly trying to appease and make sure that you don't ruin it so that you're not once again rejected.
On that, I think a lot of my RSD, and it's been exacerbated from friendships.
Yeah. And would you care to elaborate?
Probably not. Probably can't really go into it, but just leave it at that. There's definitely been friendships where I have been rejected, or at least perceived to be rejected, and lost friendships. And
with little explanation too.
With little explanation.
Which is the key.
And relationships with little explanation, which, it just kind of like that RSD that I already really chronically have from a very young age, I guess from like feeling rejected. I kind of had that like narrative about myself, like you're unlovable, you're this, you're that. So when those things happen to me as an adult with friendships, it kind of goes, see? And it's terrible. I know it's not true. Like I know I am great and lovable and I know I'm all these great things. But I'm sure people can relate to this. It's like if you experience RSD, something could happen and it just like reiterates that narrative you have about yourself, which just exacerbates it more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I feel like in some ways, I don't know, does the RSD get worse as you get older? Is it getting worse for you? Or are you becoming less, do you care less?
I definitely think it's got worse because two major things happened in my early 20s with people, friendships and relationships. So it was really bad. But I also do think now, weirdly, in the last year or so, turning 30 and just, I do think that I have the ability to now try and not care as much. Like it's all about trying to overpower your brain. I'm also in therapy now, which is really good to talk about this because I think this is the biggest, most crippling thing that I deal with. And so, I'm also like learning ways to combat the feeling of being rejected. So I think it got worse into my 20s and as I got older, but now maybe I just am trying not to give as much of an F and also getting strategies to help with it.
Yeah, nice. That's great. And I think also like living in environments where you always have to mask or self-monitor. So like don't be too loud, don't be this, don't that, blah, blah, blah.
And monitor other people's energies and
again,
behaviors.
You just feel rejected constantly. I think, I know at school I wasn't appearing ADHD, but I saw that other kids with ADHD getting berated for being annoying, talking too much. So again, I'm like going, okay, they're being rejected for that. So I'll make sure I never do any of that.
Yes.
And again, that comes back to the masking thing where you are just constantly monitoring your environment to avoid any perceived rejection. Don't offend anyone. Stay safe, stay safe, stay safe.
Don't be too much. Don't be too loud. And it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. Yeah, it is. Also with autism, RSD hasn't been theorized that you're born with it if you're autistic, but then a lot of people who have autism have ADHD, so then you kind of end up overlapping anyway. But I think people who are just autistic can still experience RSD in ways because of perceived social rejection, not this is stereotypes, but not being able to fit into groups, or
maybe it's more like a learned behavior, the RSD,
a
subconscious learned behavior that you experience from those examples.
Yeah, exactly right. So RSD is likely, this is what research is saying, it's likely a combination of brain wiring, but then also the environment and your experience and your trauma. And yeah, then it all just exacerbates into one lovely bundle of rejection. And then when you add the justice sensitivity in, when that's bringing in like moral issues now and how you feel morally about things or people, and that just makes it even worse.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
It's really interesting stuff. So you're probably wondering, like, can you stop it? How do you do about it? Because it's quite crippling and debilitating. You can't stop it because, as we've said, it's kind of innate and it's just the way your brain's wired, and then the trauma just makes it worse. But knowing, I think, what it is helps, first of all.
Yeah.
So when I found out what RSD was, I was like, oh, okay. So not everyone is feeling that intense, guttural, disgusting feeling when they are rejected or perceived to be rejected. You knowing that it's a part of your brain wiring can just kindness, you know?
can kind of just identify and go, okay.
Yeah.
Like put a name on it.
Yeah. And you can also then go, okay, this is probably like RSD. Let's just take a breather for a sec. Let's just not even react. Let's just not put any thought into what I'm going to say back. For example, let's say it's a text or something.
Yeah.
Taking 10 minutes just to like process a little bit and don't react instantly in the moment. It's so hard though. When you're
So
feeling
hard.
rejected and you just want to right the wrong, especially when there's an injustice involved, you just want to react immediately and go, that's not true. But sometimes it's actually better to just like sit back for 10 minutes and just like, you have just started a therapy page with a very neurodivergent affirming psychologist, which
Yeah.
is very key. If you're neurodivergent and you do have the ability to access psychological treatment, get someone who's neurodivergent affirming, because
Yeah.
it makes such a difference. Our brains are different. We need different psychology, therapy, and like strategies.
Our brains are wired differently. We need neurodivergent
Exactly.
therapists.
Exactly
Well,
right.
like, yeah.
So what have you learned anything so far that helps you with your RSD?
A lot, but I probably can't really go into some of it. But one thing that's really helped, which is like a widely known technique, breathing. You think it's so simple and like how could something, help you so much, but really it really does help. It helps like turn off your adrenaline kind of.
It's exactly what it's doing.
Yeah. And so the technique is 4-7-8 breathing, and I've found in the last 2 weeks implementing that has really, really helped that guttural, visceral feeling
Mm-hmm.
of like heart pounding, all that. Because essentially, like you said, it's like a fight or flight response. Like you're getting ready to like fight a bear.
Yeah.
But we're not fighting bears.
No, exactly.
And so it's 4 seconds breathing in through your nose,
Mm-hmm.
holding for 7, and then breathing out through your mouth for 8, and quite like heavily, like.
Mm-hmm.
And let all of the air out. You want to breathe out as much as you can. You want to breathe out more than what you're breathing in.
Yeah.
Because that's where hyperventilation comes in. I think me and you are chronic for that,
Mhm.
where you think that you need to breathe in more air, but you actually need to breathe out all the air you have.
Yeah. And that's
So, yeah.
hyperventilate.
So that breathing for me has been really good. I feel like you have to kind of do a few rounds and concentrate on it when you're feeling those awful feelings. But after about 3 rounds, I feel my nervous system calm down.
Yeah.
So it's really, really good. I would try that.
That's awesome, because as a kid, I was always told, concentrate on your breathing. And I'm like, oh,
Like, what do you
What do you
mean?
mean? That's so stupid. But the reason it works is because in the wild, if you were being chased by a bear, you wouldn't be able to do this 4-7-8 breathing. You wouldn't be able to. You'd be still running and screaming. So when you are able to do that, it's literally indicating to your body, you're safe. You're safe.
You're not in danger.
Yeah.
You're safe.
You're
Yeah.
not- the bear is not coming. It's okay. So that's a really good one. And again, it sounds very simple, but it does
It has
really
helped.
work.
Yeah.
Another thing I think I try and do as well is sometimes I can catastrophize my thoughts. So like I'll like something will happen and then I just over catastrophize. Like
Yeah.
I'm now blowing something up to be so big.
Mhm.
And coming back again, probably breathing first will help you get to this sort of rational space of mind.
Mhm.
But basically challenge your catastrophic thoughts and go, is there not 100 more likely scenarios here?
Like
It's not just that one.
devil's advocate kind of?
Kind of.
Like rebutting and going, but it could mean I actually do that too.
Yeah.
I do try to do that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's really important. And I think also just being around people who make you feel safe. Another
Mhm.
again, that's very simple, but you shouldn't feel a constant like rejection or fear of rejection with people who genuinely love you.
Yeah.
I know it's easy to say that. And I think it never fully goes away, RSD. You can't like fully fix it, but you can definitely cope with it. And I think being around people who understand you is really important. And if you know someone who may overreact in quotation marks to emotional things, just be patient with them, because you don't know what their life is like.
And what they're experiencing in that moment.
Exactly. It's all relative. They could have also just had a horrible piece of news yesterday that's now exacerbating this perceived rejection or whatever it is. So being patient with people who are in overreacting in
Quotation marks.
yeah, is just, it's really, really important, because these people who experience an RSD episode, the last thing they need is to feel like they're an idiot.
Yeah, like they're making a big deal out of something, because that just exacerbates the RSD more. It's just like a spiral.
Yeah.
Like validate them.
Yeah.
And just, it's all relative. Like you said, it's all relative. So you can't judge someone else's life or what they're experiencing and apply your experience onto their life.
Yeah. 100%.
It's all relative.
It is all relative. 100%. So yeah, just be patient. And also, if you've got people in your life and if you're listening to this and you've recognized, oh man, I definitely have RSD, maybe send this episode to your loved ones, or even just send them a little paragraph on what it is, and just share with them what it is and say, look, I might react like this when you say these things or when you ask me to do this, but please just know it's not actually personal to you either.
I've started to do that to you recently a little bit. Now that I'm more aware of my brain and like what's actually happening. Like, for example, recently you were like giving me advice and I was like getting all defensive, and that's not you. Like, you weren't wrong. My defense came from my own RSD. But I would say to you, like, don't worry, I know that I'm not being fair to you right now. Sorry. Like, I was aware of it and I admitted it, and I know I'm not being fair to you, but just know that this is like a learned response, or like it's like so just being aware of it, I think, is like,
Yeah, I think it can really help with like relationships, especially intimate relationships. If your partner understands what RSD is, maybe they'll be a bit more patient with it and know to give you 24 hours space before they jump to a conclusion that you're overreacting again.
Yeah.
Don't know. Every relationship's different. Every brain is different. But I think sharing with people around you what RSD is, it might actually really help you feel a bit more seen, and then your family and friends to just accommodate you more.
Yeah.
And not go, oh, she's having an episode again. You know?
Because when you don't know anything about it, like on the surface, it might look like to people that someone's overreacting. Sure, okay, fine. But it's not always the case at all. It's like a more deeper issue going on. Deeper response, unconscious, uncontrollable response that's happening.
Exactly right. I think also, like, with the emotional regulation thing, again, I'm not a scientist, but I think with ADHD, and we've got so many thoughts firing off all the time, I think sometimes the rejection or the emotional regulation issue comes from an overwhelm of too much at once. So my brain is processing so many different things that I just have like almost like a little meltdown, or an emotional outlet, because there's too many thoughts happening that I can't even process what's going on. And I think especially in young kids with ADHD, they lack the emotional regulation even more so. And so it looks like they're having a big meltdown about something really, really minor, but really there's probably a number of things going on in the room that's stressing them out, even sensory overload. Think about, is there a light on that's triggering this? Is there a sound happening in the room that could be triggering this? There's just so much more to it. So be kind to yourself. I think the wrap up on that would be kind to yourself. If you do experience this intense rejection feeling, you're not alone.
Not alone.
And it's not an odd thing. It often is really highly correlated with ADHD, a little bit with autism, and just general trauma. And it can affect anyone. And just know that it probably won't ever go away, because it's just how your brain's been wired, and then trauma makes that even worse.
And try, but I think maybe we shouldn't say it can't ever go away. We could try and implement strategies, and maybe one day, I don't know.
It's maybe. But yeah, I think when it's just so innate, it can be really hard to combat. But you're not alone, and please be kind to yourself and be kind to people around you, and maybe look at, people who are often looked at as over the top, and maybe just have a bit more empathy for them and go,
what's going on in their mind, in their brain.
Exactly right. Thank you for listening. Let us know if you have had any, maybe I'll put another question box up. Let us know if you've experienced RSD, whether you've got any coping mechanisms that you use. Just any thoughts, really. I'm always open to chat about this, because again, like we said, it's not very highly researched. It's still being kind of looked into, and we still don't fully know exactly why ADHDers have this, but yeah, we just need to keep talking to each other, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about ourselves each time we chat.
Yes.
You enjoy your week, and we'll be back next week for another banging episode.
Woo! Thanks,
Woo,
guys.
bye.
Bye.